Coming to you live from Florida's Space Coast, it's About Space Today. And here's your host about space, David Denault.
Good morning and welcome to our coverage of the Europa Clipper launch to Jupiter and the moon of Jupiter. I'm David Denault, and we are here at America's Spaceport. Well, the Europa Clipper is the largest spacecraft NASA has ever launched for a planetary mission, and it will determine whether there are places below the surface of Jupiter's icy moon Europa that could support life. And what do we really know about the Europa mission and what we really do need to know? Out in the field where the time clock is John Gomez, our This Week in Space news editor. John?
Thanks, David. The mission's three main science objectives are to understand the nature of the ice shell and the ocean beneath it, along with the moon's composition and geology. The mission's detailed exploration of Europa will help scientists better understand the astrobiological potential for habitable worlds beyond our planet. And NASA details the mission on what we need to know about Europa. And just minutes from now, Europa Clipper will begin its incredible journey through space. I'm John Gomez, and you just learned a little about space today.
My co-hosts today are Don Meyer, Space Coast news editor, who is in our Cape Canaveral broadcast studios, and David Bradley, who has traveled here to be part of the About Space Today team. He will lend his expertise on planetary missions. Now retired, he still lives near Cambridge, England, where he and I met during 2005 on an investigation of Brindleton Forest, the UFO landing there, and which is sometimes called the Roswell of England. Yep. And David's no stranger to the spaceport, are you?
Nope.
You were here in 2006 when you and I did the launch of STS-101.
Correct, that's right.
So welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you, David.
And good to have you here. Weather in England's probably a little cooler than it is
ever
here.
so slightly.
We are under beautiful skies here in the 80 degrees for launch time. And I think this will be a go for launch, as all that we've heard this morning. Weather downrange is excellent as well. Well, David, what will the Europa Clipper mission really do?
Well, David, Europa Clipper's main science goal is to determine whether there are places below the surface of Jupiter's icy moon, Europa, that can support life. Mm-hmm. The mission's three main objectives are to understand the nature of the ice shell and the oceans beneath it, along with the moon's composition and geology. The detailed exploration of Europa will help scientists better understand the potential for habitable worlds beyond our planet. The Clipper's spacecraft will perform dozens of close flybys of Jupiter's moon Europa, gathering detailed measurements to investigate the moon. The spacecraft in orbit around Jupiter will make nearly 50 flybys of Europa as low as 16 miles or 25 kilometers above the surface, passing over different locations, doing each flyby to scan nearly the entire moon.
Excellent. Wow.
Yep.
That's quite a project. You figure how close 16 miles, 25 kilometers, is very, very close.
Very close.
And actually, why the number of flybys is because of the radiation of Jupiter itself. So we're
Yes.
going to go out and about and make a number of turns. Well, Don Meyer in our studios at Cape Canaveral. Don, you've been a 28-year veteran of the Space Shuttle program, and you've covered hundreds of flights. What about your interest in how big the Europa Clipper mission really is and the size of the spacecraft?
Yes, David, with its massive solar arrays and radar antennas, the Europa Clipper is the largest spacecraft NASA has ever developed for a planetary mission. The spacecraft has large solar arrays to collect enough light for its power needs as it operates in the Jupiter system, which is more than 5 times as far from the Sun as Earth. The spacecraft is about 16 feet or 5 meters in height, and with its arrays deployed, the spacecraft spans more than 100 feet or 30.5 meters and has a dry mass, which means no propellant in the tanks, of 7,145 pounds, which is 3,241 kilograms.
It's going to take 6 years to get out there. Just think about the size, it's just bonkers. The solar array is a powerhouse for the spacecraft on its journey from Earth to Europa. We've just completed our first flight leg deployment, and this is how it will deploy in space. These solar arrays are so big, we can only test one wing at a time. These solar arrays are really unique in that not only do they need to survive extremely cold temperatures, minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit, it's also meant to survive the extremely harsh Jupiter radiation environment. We built the solar arrays on Earth, we've tested them, but now they're actually going to Jupiter to provide power to all the instruments in the spacecraft to send back valuable science. It's an engineering feat that we're able to develop this. It is extremely exciting for me to be part of that.
Well, this will be an incredible mission. I'm David Denault, along with David Bradley, who is our planetary reporter. And there's nothing like this that man has ever launched into space before. Bonnie Baratti is NASA's Deputy Project Manager for the Europa mission, and she discussed some of the scientific instruments that will be aboard the spacecraft during a news briefing.
We're pretty certain there's very strong evidence that the ingredients for life exist on Europa, but we have to go there to find out, to make sure that it's really there. The final image here, the video of the spacecraft and the instruments. Yes, what are these instruments going to do? What are the instruments? This is the biggest spacecraft ever sent into outer space with the most sophisticated instruments. Starting in the ultraviolet part of the spectrum, our eyes can't see that. We have UVS, to study the surface and the atmosphere. Then we have ICE, which is the cameras. There's a wide angle and a narrow angle camera to take impressive pictures, images down to 1 meter resolution. Then we have an infrared spectrometer to look for the fingerprints of the chemicals, especially organic molecules we're looking for. Then a thermal infrared mapper that will look for hot spots and understand the texture of the surface. And then there's also an ice-penetrating radar, which is going to study this crust, the upper part of the crust and parts of the ocean. There's also 4 fields and particles experiments. There's a magnetometer, which will study the interior, especially the ocean, try to understand what that is like. There's a plasma detector, which will look at these highly energetic particles around in the environment of Europa. Then there's also a dust detector, and then an instrument mass specs, which will look for these organic, sophisticated organic molecules that could provide the food for if there are any primitive organisms. So those are the main instruments on board. As I said, they really are the most sophisticated suite of instruments on the largest spacecraft. So there will be 49 flybys of Europa to study the moon from pole to pole. We have pretty much complete coverage. And it will not only realize the main goal of this mission, which is to search for a habitable environment where possibly life could thrive, but it will also address the three major objectives of understanding the geology of the surface, the composition, and then to characterize the interior.
Back to our coverage of the Europa Clipper mission to Jupiter and its moon Europa. I'm David Denault, along with David Bradley from England, who is our planetary scientist reporter, and we will be back with coverage after these short messages. I'm David Denault, along with David Bradley. Come to the land of orange groves and palm trees. Come to the land of theme parks. Come to the land of sunny beaches and the azure waters of the Atlantic Ocean. So come and visit Florida for lasting memories. Email us. Email david.ddcruiseandtours@gmail.com or call D&D Cruise and Tours at 877-747-8631 for your next family, cruise, or theme park vacation. Let us provide you your next visit with our travel experience, not experimentation. We are members of IATAN and CLIA. Email david.ddcruiseandtours@gmail.com. Serving the Southeast, traveler since 1985.
Everyone in my family went on a Carnival cruise. Maggie didn't come though, because she's a dog. Mom did things I've never seen her do. Dad was himself, and I met this girl who was pretty cool, I guess. My best friend! Then I saw a bird. Hi.
Cool bird.
And Dad told us to put on sunscreen, and we had the best time together. Please don't tell my parents I said that.
Welcome back to our historic coverage of the Europa Clipper launch to Jupiter and to search for possible forms of life on its moon, Europa. Don Meyer, our Space Coast news editor, and David Bradley, our new AST contributing editor for Planetary Mission, joins us today. And Don, back in our Space Coast studios, Don, you've always liked the patch designs that come up for each mission. Tell us about this one. That's why it's very unique.
The Europa Clipper mission patch is absolutely beautiful. Let me show you. The mission itself is a doorway to a secret ocean to investigate Jupiter's moon Europa and the quest for possible life. The Europa Clipper spacecraft is a sleek silver spacecraft which is represented on the patch as a sailing vessel poised for a long journey. Below it lies a majestic blue giant, Jupiter, the king of planets. This placement highlights Europa's location within the Jovian system, a moon orbiting a formidable gas giant. Nestled above Jupiter's swirling atmosphere and behind the sailing vessel is a detailed image of Europa itself. Rendered in gray and white, it showcases the moon's icy surface, hinting at the vast ocean it might conceal beneath its frozen surface and its potential hidden depths as the ultimate destination and the heart of the mission's intrigue. Emanating from the Europa Clipper vessel are several curved lines in various shades of blue and green. These lines represent the mission's scientific instruments, like outstretched fingers reaching out to gather data. They symbolize the tireless quest for knowledge and the mission's tools to unlock They symbolize the tireless quest for knowledge, the mission's tools to unlock the secrets buried beneath the icy surface. As I said, it's an absolutely beautiful patch.
And welcome back. David, see if you remember, when was the last time a clipper ship was used?
Oh, I can't say your name, actually.
Apollo.
Oh, of course it was, yeah.
Apollo 12.
Yes, it does.
And it's really neat because the clipper ship there represented the Navy's background of the crew and the era of the clipper ships, which is related to the era of spaceflight, believe it or not. And it said that the clipper ship back then was also a crossover of the Ocean of Storms, where the Apollo 12 spacecraft touched down on the moon. Absolutely fascinating, and how they are very, very similar. They look like each other. We have a comparison slide as well, side by side there, of both of them. And as you can see, the ship in there as well, and the design as well. And
Very
instead
nice.
of the moon, we have Jupiter
Yep.
in the slide as well.
Yep.
Well, man has really looked at the stars and the night sky and wondered, are we alone? Well, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been listening for messages from anywhere in our planetary system and a distant world. And today we're going to launch a spacecraft into the unknown future. And that may answer these questions. Are we alone? And if life possibly could have lived somewhere in the universe. We're going to study an alien ocean.
Europa is the most likely place to find life in our solar system today because we think there's a liquid water ocean beneath its surface. Now we know that on Earth, everywhere that there's water, we find life. So could Europa have the ingredients to support life?
We might be actually looking at a body that is presently alive, presently active, and presently undergoing its geology. There is too much evidence right now lying around on the surface, the red stuff, that suggests that something's going on there. Is that an environment that is habitable for any sort of life form? By golly, we really have got to go back and figure that out.
Previous mission concepts were for a spacecraft that would orbit Europa. But Europa is bathed in radiation from Jupiter. Any mission that goes in the vicinity of Europa is cooked pretty quickly. Instead, we're looking at a mission that will orbit Jupiter, make close flybys of Europa, and then zip out of the high radiation region.
Kind of like when I was a kid, we had the sprinklers, and we didn't want to be too close to the sprinkler head, so we would run in and get a little water and then run back out again.
This allows us to have a mission that's many years long and to collect and transmit lots and lots of data. As Europa orbits Jupiter, it flexes, and we could measure the gravitational change of Europa by encountering Europa at different points in its orbit. On a typical flyby, we would turn on our remote sensing instruments, we would image the surface, we would interrogate the surface with spectroscopy, and we would do the same thing on the way out. And we would essentially rinse and repeat, and do this many, many times until we understand Europa globally. Europa is so important because we want to understand, are we alone in the cosmos? If there's life in Europa, it almost certainly was completely independent from the origin of life on Earth. That would mean the origin of life must be pretty easy throughout the galaxy and beyond.
David, you've studied this mission.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on what lies below and what do we see?
Well, beyond Earth, Europa is considered one of the most promising places we might find currently habitable environments in our solar system. Europa Clipper will determine whether there are places below Europa's surface that could support life.
Mm-hmm.
The spacecraft payload will include cameras and spectrometers to produce high-resolution images and composite maps of Europa's surface and thin atmosphere, which is slightly oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Also an ice-penetrating radar to search for subsurface water, and a magnetometer and gravity measurements to unlock clues about its ocean and deep interior.
Well, with all of that, what do you think? Do you think life could exist in our universe like that?
Well, yes, you've got to think that the moon, Europa, is just slightly smaller than our moon. But it has oceans that are 60 miles deep. And there's between 2 and 3 times much water on Europa than there is on Earth's oceans. And because of the gravitation and action of huge Jupiter, which has the mass of 1,000 Earths, that has an impact upon the core of Europa, which causes it to shrink and grind, and it's the kind of that causes heat in the core to warm up the oceans at the bottom. So really, when you think that you're getting water and warmth, then you can pretty be sure that there's a good chance that there's good life on there. And to actually use the words used by this is Jim, there's life, but not as we know it.
As we know it. You know, you talk about the possibilities. If by some chance we were to find some kind of life, wouldn't that really say that life could be teeming everywhere in the universe?
Yes, it's just that we've obviously studied the deep kind of what are called smokers deep in the oceans, and they sometimes vent most noxious gases and chemicals which would not support life as we know it, but nevertheless life exists amongst that. So I think, yes, there will be life everywhere, it's just that it'll be completely different from anything that we know.
Now, one of the things you just mentioned about heating and so forth, there possibly are some plumes that are being spotted of vapor coming out.
Yes.
And is that the result of the electronic, what do you call that?
Well, they certainly have found a kind of, I suppose we'd best describe it as geysers that have penetrated through, because clearly the oceans are under an ice cap, but we don't know how much that is, but it does fissure. I imagine when it fissures, that's when water is expanded out through the air into the atmosphere.
Well, we are approaching about 8 minutes to launch right now, and we will take a break. Our historic mission of the Europa Clipper is next as we get ready for launch, as America and the world is listening to About Space Today. Are you ready to fly away on a dream vacation? For cruises and all-inclusive resort vacations, call D&D Cruise and Tours at 877-747-8631. That's 877-747-8631. And see us on Facebook, D&D Cruise and Tours, where your dreams become a reality.
I'm so excited to take on the most sweetest job at sea, Chief Culinary Officer for America's favorite cruise line. I'm really looking forward to helping bring new, exciting, and unique flavors to the Carnival Cruise experience. This is not only going to be delicious, but it's also going to be a lot of fun. Emeril Lagasse, Carnival's new Chief Culinary Officer. It does have a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Like, bam!
Welcome back to our coverage from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. We are just minutes away now from the launch of the Europa Clipper. It will be a historic launch as we will go farther in space to see if life really exists. David?
Yes. Well, we're just 3 miles away from the launch pad. I guess if we were any closer, then we just need marshmallows and a toasting fork. Certainly, I've never been this close to a launch, so this is going to be quite an event.
And I think that the journalists that are here today is quite a big crowd, internationally as well as here in the U.S. The press room has been very crowded earlier this morning, as well as beyond us out in the field. And behind us, of course, is the countdown clock coming up on approximately 5 minutes to launch of the Europa Clipper. David, this has 2 boosters on it.
Yes.
That usually would come back on a Falcon Heavy.
Yes.
What has happened to them?
Well, I was looking forward to them coming back, because I was going to say that being 3 miles away from the pad seemed an awful long way, but with these 38-ton empty rockets coming back overhead and over the speed of sound, I got the feeling that 3 miles wasn't far enough. But today they're going to use the full capacity of these boosters to take the rocket up as far as it can. And these boosters have been used before, and so they're going to be used as expendable, and they're going to be jettisoned, and they will drop into the ocean.
Rather than come back.
Rather than come back, and we won't get any sonic boom, unfortunately.
No double boom for us here today. Well, that's kind of disappointing in a way, but we can understand that they're older boosters and they don't want to reuse them.
Nope.
Usually they will come back here to the Space Center with dual boosters. Other than that, they have the capability of landing here or on a barge out in the ocean. And David, looking at this mission from a European perspective, what do the folks in your country and over in Europe think about our missions like this?
Oh, I think it's vitally important, because quite frankly, you know, if you, the kind of normal terrestrial views that we have of things like Jupiter and its moons, well, so there's 95 moons on Jupiter, but I've only ever seen 4 of them.
T-minus 3 minutes and 45 seconds to launch. Is behind us, you can see the liquid oxygen venting on the first and second stages now, and it appears that we are go at this point. We have gone through a series of checks with the mission control operatives on each of the various control panels, and the word is go, go, and go. So we're now coming up at 3 minutes. We are looking at the Falcon Heavy booster, and quite a sight to behold out there. We're watching our monitor and the countdown as well. So at 3 minutes, David, give me what you think about the feel of this.
Well, I'm looking at you in the camera, and this thing's happening right behind me. So I can't wait to stop talking and look round at this marvelous event. And certainly, as I've seen previous launches from about 15 miles, I know that the sound is going to hit us. And the only thing I think is going to be comparable is the Hurricane Milton that we just experienced.
Yes.
The wall of sound and the shock wave is going to be tremendous.
It will be loud. It will be loud, absolutely. And you talk about the hurricane at this point, and there was not a great deal of damage here at the Space Center, believe it or not, after all of that.
Amazingly.
Minus 15 seconds and counting.
And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff. Liftoff of Falcon Heavy with Europa Clipper, unveiling the mysteries of an enormous ocean lurking beneath the icy crust of Jupiter's moon, Europa.
Engine chamber pressures are nominal.
See that the chamber pressures are nominal from here. All 27 Merlin engines look great.
Rocket beginning to roll. Putting down 5.1 billion pounds of thrust. Coming up, they're going to back off those engines just a bit.
So we get ready to head into max
Power
Q.
and telemetry nominal.
We hear that power and telemetry on the vehicle are good there. Everything's looking really
Falcon
well.
Heavy is supersonic.
They have reduced power in the center core to get through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the launch vehicle as we approach that. The 2 side boosters at full throttle.
A beautiful shot there is our camera team.
Max Q.
Locking into the rocket on a clear blue sky. The view from the booster camp, back down on Earth.
And there we heard the call for max Q. The vehicle is passing through maximum dynamic pressure. Next thing up in about 2 minutes will be booster engine cutoff, where we see the two side booster engines, all 18, shut down and get ready for booster separation. But the vehicle is performing very well. Looking at all the telemetry that we have, power and trajectory are nominal.
We've been flying for just under 2 minutes so far. Everything looking good. B-side boosters, once they do their job, they will be expended. If you're familiar with the Falcon Heavy, you know that they bring the boosters back on certain launches, but not on this one, because all of the performance is needed to push Europa Clipper into its proper orbit.
Things continue to look good as the vehicle heads down its ascent phase here. All telemetry is looking very nominal for this flight this morning. Falcon Heavy is performing very well.
Now we're just about 30 seconds away from separating those side boosters. Their engines will cut off first, then they will separate.
MVAC is chilling.
Starting to chill down that MVAC-D engine in the second stage.
And that's where we need to get the engine chilled to the proper temperatures before flowing liquid oxygen and RP1 into it. So they're conditioning the engine to make sure things are ready for when it's ready to start up.
Stand by for booster separation.
Booster engine cutoff. Side booster separation confirmed.
And there they go.
Those two boosters previously flown on Psyche. This will be their 6th flight. We thank you for their service this morning. They did a great job of getting Falcon Heavy and Europa Clipper on its way as the center core takes over and continues mission down its ascent. Things are looking really good in the telemetry. Power and trajectory look nominal, and chamber pressures on the 9 center core engines look really good.
In just a little more than 20 seconds from now, we'll get the cutoff of the main engine on the center core booster that remains. 4 seconds after that, we will separate. Flying out over the Atlantic Ocean. There's a look from inside.
There we see stage 1
stage separation confirmed.
And stage separation from the center core. Getting ready for MVAC startup, SES-1.
We're getting some applause here in the Mission Directors Center, and there you see the MVAC-D engine lighting up.
Next thing up in about 10 seconds will be fairing separation.
NYPY FTS has saved.
And the fairing has protected Europa Clipper on its ascent up into space, but once we get into space, we don't need that fairing anymore.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Fairing has separated, and those will be recovered, Daryl, by SpaceX's own recovery ship, Go Cosmos.
And there you see them falling away into space. That is the only part of this rocket that will be recovered.
The glow of the MVAC-D engine as it performs its first burn here. This is about a 3-minute and 47-second burn. Things are looking great. Matter of fact, this is one of the shortest first burns that has been done on a Falcon Heavy by SpaceX, but it is required to get us into that parking orbit for that long coast that we have to get ready for the interplanetary trajectory that we're going to need to get Europa Clipper on its way that we heard Jenny talk about to get those Earth assist slingshots as it heads on its way for its mission. So things looking really good this morning with the performance of the Falcon Heavy. MVAC is performing well, and everything looks good thus far in today's mission.
David, we can honestly say now the Europa Clipper is on its way, and it's a 6-year journey. To say the least. Well, we want you to let you know that you can follow the Europa mission as well as update on space news. And if you will, join us every Tuesday for This Week in Space with John Gomez, and every Friday with Dawn Meyer, America in Space. And join me for my twice-a-month special reports. From America's spaceport, And to all our listeners around the globe and here in the U.S., thanks for joining our coverage. And remember to like and subscribe to our podcast. I'm David Denault. Thanks for joining us.
This has been a special report from About Space Today.